Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interview some of the most successful people in Orange County. I'm Danny Flores, your host, and today's honored guest is Don Walker, zooming in from Irvine, California. Don Walker is a veteran in the fitness industry with over 40 years of distinguished experience spanning fitness management, personal training, and corporate wellness. His career began in Los Caballeros Sports Complex in Fountain Valley, California, where he developed and managed the facility's inaugural personal training program. Driven by passion for health and fitness, Don went on to found Lifestyle Physiques, one of the largest and earliest in-home personal training businesses of its time in Orange County, California. Don's expertise also took him to global stages, serving as International Director of Wellness for Gucci Timepieces, where he established employee wellness programs across multiple countries. His forward-thinking approach led to the creation of the first ever personal training programs for both Family Fitness Center and 24-Hour Fitness, significantly advancing the personal training profession within these major organizations. For 20 years, Don successfully owned and operated 3 fitness centers, leveraging his extensive knowledge in both fitness and business management. His leadership in the industry continued as he served as a national senior pre-sales manager at Club Pilates and Pure Barre, where he oversaw expansion efforts for these renowned fitness brands under the Exponential Fitness umbrella. Welcome, Don.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it looks like you're a fitness expert. So tell us a little bit about how you got here and your journey.
Well, just love for fitness. I'll tell you how it all started is I used to run with my father every morning, when I was able to, and I just love fitness, and I love how it made people feel and how it made people healthy. And I had a grandfather who died when I was young of cancer, and he had brain cancer, and he lay on his deathbed a few days before he died, and he wasn't able to speak anymore. It affected his brain. And I sat on the side, and this is a big Swedish man. He used to fix water. He had his own water heater repair company. He'd take the empty water heater, throw it over his shoulder. I mean,
Wow.
he's a big boy. And so I kneeled down, and I said I would do something with my life so that other people don't suffer. And I got accepted to the University of Colorado, not knowing what my major was. And first day I remember walking on campus and seeing the major, exercise physiology. And I just knew in that moment that was my venue for
Right.
helping lives and changing people and helping them better. So majored in that and got out and started doing training programs and doing what I could do to have an impact, what I thought is a major impact on people's lifestyle and their health and their longevity. So it's been a real rewarding career in that sense.
Now, I know there's people that exercise and there's people that don't ever exercise. Do you know kind of more or less what percentage of the American people do exercise versus not?
Well, we know about 20% of any population are going to actually enter a gym, and probably around 35% to 40%, depending on the community, actually do regular exercise. So there's a huge amount of people that could exercise, but there's a difference between when you ask somebody, are you active? They might say yes, but and they maybe in their world they're active, but not active to the extent that it changes physiology, that it has an impact on your longevity. So it's I forget the exact numbers, but if you exercise once a week, it decreases your risk of heart disease and stroke by like 35%. If you exercise twice a week, roughly, it decreases it like 40 something percent. And 3 times a week, which isn't much, reduces your risk of heart disease like 65%. So it doesn't take a lot. It just takes consistency over time, and
Right.
that's the biggest thing. But it's always a challenge to get people either to enter a gym or find a routine at their house to keep them exercising.
Right. Because it's a commitment, right? You have to be committed to doing it. And I think sometimes I think that doing it, you don't see results. Sometimes you don't see any difference if you're exercising. And that's like, how do you get motivated? And how do you keep that motivation without seeing big results sometimes?
Yeah, well, it can be worse than that. When you start a program in the initial stages, not only do you not necessarily see results, you're sore, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of get through that period. And that's not to say that every exercise program has to begin with soreness. It doesn't. And so it usually what happens when you get sore, it means you put more tension on that muscle fiber than it could withstand, and it develop little micro tears. So the idea of a progressive exercise program is you don't really need to be sore. If you get sore, it's okay. You overshot it a little bit, but the best kind of ascension and the best progression you could develop on an exercise program is that you feel like you exercise, you're not really sore, maybe a little bit, but not much, if anything. And then that really is at the same pace, the same rate that you can make physiological changes. Anything beyond that where you're getting soreness is just you're risking injury and you're going beyond your muscle's ability to adapt at that rate.
Right.
Right. So it's not that going slow is trying to be easy on somebody. It's better. And what happens when you get soreness, you actually don't replace muscle tears with muscle. You replace it with scar tissue in a sense. So somebody who bases their workout on how sore they get over the years actually develops more scar tissue in the muscle itself. And later in life will have a greater risk of muscle tearing because you lose that elasticity. So it's really not the best way to get healthy or get fit by feeling soreness. So it's better that you limit it for muscle health and for how you feel. Maybe some motivation.
Right.
It doesn't have to be painful.
So some guys, some people, right, want to build muscle. Is that the only way that muscle gets built, by actually micro tears and building scar tissue? And how does that make them stronger? Because they're big, right? They're bigger. They lift big weights and big plates. You can see them in the gym. They're benching, I don't know, 400 pounds or whatever. So will that affect them as they're older, their muscles?
Yeah, it depends. So you definitely have to find that fine line between so much resistance, tensile, what we call tensile force, pulling on that fiber. You have to find that balance between putting enough to cause adaptive change over time and too
Right.
much that causes injury. And it's not, muscle soreness isn't the end of the world, thank God. You're going to be fine. So a
Right.
little muscle soreness, it's continuous muscle soreness that somebody seeks over the year.
Oh, okay.
So if you're going to play with fire, you're going to get burned. If you're working out and you're trying to go heavy and you want atrophy, you want muscle size, then you're going to get a little bit sore once in a while, but you don't have to base your workout on that. It's
Right.
not a requirement. And it's interesting when you talk about getting big muscles, when you look at um muscle bodybuilders, if you're a grown adult man, in your prime testosterone period, maybe 20, 25 years old, the most muscle mass you can put on your body in 1 year is about 10 pounds, maybe 12 pounds of pure muscle mass. So that's not fast enough for a lot of bodybuilders. So they take steroids, right? And
Right.
steroids accelerates that a little bit, but there are downsides to it. And I certainly never recommend taking steroids, but that's the motivator for these guys to do that. But
Right.
if you look at somebody who just naturally builds, you're young, you're gonna put on about 10 pounds of pure muscle a year, and that's a healthy rate if
Right.
that's your goal.
And so how does that change? That's a good, interesting topic, right? You said between your 20s and your 30s. That's probably your prime for your body. But as you get older, sometimes you see people online on the social medias that say, I'm 55, I'm 60 or 65, and look at I'm the fittest I've ever been. Now, how much more difficult is it to build muscle once you hit your 50, your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s?
Well, let me first maybe dispel a misnomer. Muscle strength has nothing to do with your fitness or longevity, right? So you can get somebody that's really strong and can lift a lot of weight, but they don't necessarily live longer. They're not necessarily healthier. They just can push more force. They can just lift more weight. You can take great athletes who aren't strong, they're more endurance trained, and they're actually healthier and have more longevity, they live longer. So living long and being healthy has nothing to do with muscle hypertrophy. There's other factors involved. So it's not always the end goal to see how big and strong we can get. We can
Right.
get, endurance, strength, you can get a lot of health and fitness that doesn't have to be you don't have to be the biggest, strongest person in the room for that.
Right, right, right. No,
And
but
I'll
they,
say something else, and I don't want to get into nutrition, but you can lift all the weight you want, but if you put the wrong diet in your mouth, you're going to have heart disease. You're going to promote heart disease. So eating correctly is a huge part of getting results, right?
right,
You can work out all the time and still have heart disease. So it's eating a low fat diet, but there's a lot of factors, but anyways,
right.
I digress.
Almost like saying you can't outwork a bad diet.
That's right. That's right. You know.
Now, how important is it to have maybe not big muscle, but good muscle as you age? You hear sometimes where it talks about your bone density is in better condition. If you work out, right, you keep yourself in shape and you keep working out, you keep exercising, so that as you get into your older years, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, that you're not struggling as much to move around.
Right. I mean, it's all about activities, what we call ADLs, activities for daily living.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to do what you want to do. If your
Mm-hmm.
goal is to go fishing every day and be able to walk down to the river and get out your fishing rod and go fishing or get in your boat and you're able to do that, then that's great, right? So
Right,
if your goal is to do different things and within reason, I can't sprint anymore like I used to.
right, right.
What happens. But,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways to measure health and longevity and fitness without being the best athlete. I guess
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that answers your question. But um,
Yeah, so you've opened gyms and you've worked around doing that as well. So not only in the fitness part, but in the business side. Tell us what that looks like in creating these gyms and how one is different or better than the other.
well, it started, gosh, way back. Corporate wellness really started to take hold in the late 70s and the early 80s. And when I was in Colorado, it was Coors had a real well-known corporate wellness program. And the
Mhm.
idea is to keep your employees healthy so that they don't get sick as much,
Right,
and more productive at work. And we know
right.
that healthier people, when you feel good, whether
Mhm.
you're working or not, when you feel good, you tend to want to do things in life, right? You
Right, right.
get up, you want to go on a hike, you want to be better at work, you want to be a better husband, be a better wife.
Mhm.
So it's the goal of a corporate wellness program to get people to feel good, stay active, and ultimately when you're at your station, your desk, or you're doing your job at the computer, you're able to do it quicker. Studies have shown that people that are healthy get more work done in the same amount of time. So by taking an hour off a day, even though you think you're wasting time, you actually come back and you're able to synapse a little faster, react a little better. You get more work done for the remaining 7, 8 hours of your day. So for corporate wellness, it's really about making people not only healthier because our healthcare is so expensive that we need to get these claims down, and some companies are self-insured, then that matters. But it's also about making people more productive. And we know it works. It's just a matter of, how programs are designed and getting incentivizing employees to be active. You're never going to get 100%. You're going but it's getting people to buy into either, exercising, eating correctly, and if anything, if I can just get you to not eat fat promoting fat diets, heart disease promoting diets, then that's a huge benefit, right? So it's when you talk about corporate wellness, it's putting enough options on the table for people and things that are easy to do for them, maybe incentivize them with points or some extra benefits if they participate to get people active and get some results out of the program.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. How do you get people interested in wanting to do it? But you just kind of mentioned maybe some type of bonus points or something like that, because it's going to being healthier, like you mentioned, will reduce the insurance, the medical expenses in everybody, and that should be a cost savings to the companies because of that, and promoting some form of exercise and making people healthier.
Yeah. So they rewards go from anything from getting bonuses at the end of a period, end of a month, to giving, excuse me, days off or other bonuses at work. So it's always a matter of getting people to do it, and it's always the people that hate it the most that need it the most, and it's getting the people that smoke and hate fitness people, maybe they have a preset in their mind and they're not going to do it. So it's unfortunate, but people are free to do what they want. So you can't penalize them necessarily, but you can reward people for doing some correct behavior, some doing things that actually their life.
Right. Because if you're like overweight, like really heavy, it's also taxing on your body, on your joints. You have more difficulty walking. So it's even more difficult to get into the exercise routine because you're going to struggle even more than who's not overweight.
Well, think about this. For every square inch of fat tissue you have on your body, let's say you go from, a normal weight to 20 pounds overweight, whatever that 20 extra pounds represents in square inches of fat, you lay down about 1 million new capillary beds per square inch of fat. Now imagine taking a hose and putting a longer distance on a hose. It takes more pressure to push that water, that in this case, that blood, through those million capillary beds, which requires more pressure by the heart. So when you gain weight, you naturally have an increase in, blood pressure because of extra vascularization to just supply the fat tissue with blood. When you lose fat, you actually devascularize. You actually lose those extra vessels, which is one of the reasons why blood pressure and things can come down. So having extra weight is a significant strain on your body and your heart.
Right. And without giving any medical advice, it would almost be logical that you're automatically going to be healthier being lighter, which maybe you won't have to take any blood pressure medication or anything like that.
Well, that's right. That's the whole idea. It depends. Blood pressure can come from the reason I just talked, extra vascularization. When we eat a fatty diet over years, it can plaque the inside of the arteries. And what happens is the artery itself loses its flexibility, what we call its distensibility.
Right.
So what normally happens when your heart beats, you have this wave of blood coming out of the heart into the body. And a young person, their arteries will expand to attenuate that stress and absorb it as the blood is pumped throughout the system. As you get older, you get plaquing of arteries, atherosclerosis. Those veins, those arteries lose that distensibility. So instead of having a nice expanding artery when the heart pumps, it doesn't. It stays lower. So it causes that increase in systolic blood pressure. for that and your total blood pressure, because your arteries aren't flexible anymore because they're covered with fat. But if you look at some of the research with Dr. Esselstyn from the Cleveland Clinic and others, they actually showed a lot of physicians say you cannot reduce that through diet, but they've proven it's not true. If you go on, Dr. Esselstyn from the Cleveland Clinic um, put patients on a fat-free diet, and he initially did a study. He took patients that were told they could not have any heart surgery, any more. They've already had heart surgery, bypass surgery, and there was nothing more to be done. They were in bad shape, weren't expected to live long. You put them on a plant-based vegan diet, and that vegan may not be your thing, but it saves life if you're fat-free and you need it. And they lived for another 20 years. And they reversed, most of that plaquing. It can't be done as discipline, but the biggest issue is over the years, just try to reduce the amount of fat that we consume so we don't end up with atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis is
Right.
older adult.
And it's sometimes it can be a difficult habit to change because they're all habits, right? Our eating habits, they're habits that we form. It's just building a palate for something different and simpler and more or healthier.
Well, we always say that, we all love to eat mama's cooking. And if
Yeah.
mama cooked unhealthy and mama had heart disease, well, then you're going to get the same disease as mama got by eating something.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a nutrition expert. I used to have a radio show called it was about plant-based nutrition, right? And so we talked about challenging people to try a low-fat, maybe a plant-based diet if they had these diseases.
Right.
You know, and so
Right.
called Lifestyles for Living, yeah. And
Yeah.
and we had nutrition on all the time, and we were talking about all the value of a low-fat diet, but that has to be in also to exercise, because now you accelerate. It's hard. You can't outrun a bad diet with exercise. So it's a combination, but in terms of exercise, and back to your question with corporate, it's really getting, small changes can make a big deal. So it's, a lot of corporations don't offer good foods, so they have a cafeteria maybe with bad options. So you have to change what's available for staff to get their hands on,
Right.
or hungry during
Right.
the afternoon. They want to walk out, take a 10-minute break and get something. It's not some of the fatty foods that you
Right.
often there. It should be some healthy choices.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, if somebody's listening to us and they say, okay, we got them thinking about living a little bit longer, maybe a little bit healthier, and they've never exercised, what would you suggest would be maybe the first baby step to take in moving in the right direction?
Well, a great question. It's not necessarily going to a gym, though I think it for me, a gym gives me a place to go. Get away from, I can't do a home gym. Some people may, but because I'm too interrupted, it gets too difficult to be consistent at my home, unless I had a separate place maybe, but so I like going to a facility where I can meet friends, get into a program, and there's nothing else for me to do but that. But I
Right.
think the first step is determine what it is you like to do. If you go to a trainer and the trainer says, "Oh, treadmills are the best," or ellipticals, boy, these ellipticals, they're the best. Well, maybe for some people, but maybe when you just told me ellipticals are best, in my brain, I just said, "Oh, I hate ellipticals." Then I didn't tell you the best thing. I just told you the worst thing. So the best thing is really what we like to do. So I would first look at, what do you like to do? And that may change over time. You may like ellipticals today, treadmills. You may like walking. Great. And then in 3 months, 6 months, a year, you're done walking. You've walked on that treadmill enough and you want to do something else. Great. Do something else. Right.
Right.
So, excuse me, keep enough variety in your room, but start off by doing something you like. And maybe that's hiking. And you don't have to start 100%, kick ass day one and take no prisoners. This is something you want to do for the rest of your life.
Right.
Not a short term get fixed. It's it's a lifestyle that you want to incorporate forever. So it has to ultimately be based around something you enjoy.
Right, right. No, that definitely makes sense. You gotta, if you're going to do it and commit to it, then you want to be able to like it, and that's what keeps you coming back. And so what has been one of your greatest or your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your career and in the fitness industry?
Ah, the biggest well, I've been somewhat blessed. I've met some great people, and been given some great opportunities, and um it's really just overcoming the for me, the constant need to reinvent and keep creating programs that incentivize people to get involved, right? How
Mhm.
do I keep Mr. or Mrs. Jones active and motivated long
Mhm.
term? And I think, the biggest challenge for me is when I work with franchisees, I work with franchise owners, I work with their employees, teach them sales. And it's how do we create a franchisee brand, a messaging to their employees and to their members to stay involved? What's the
Mhm.
importance of staying involved and not quitting? You know, and
Right.
that's the biggest challenge, is how do we continually motivate people to and so my challenge, I think I've been lucky in my career. I've done a lot of things, but it 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 always remains why I couldn't, when somebody walks in, they don't buy a membership, why I couldn't convince them, you know.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
ultimately it's the person that needs it the most that wants to
Right.
think about it. And
Right.
I'm like, think about what?
Right.
But I get it. So it's I think the most frustrating thing for me is not coming up with 100% answer that gets everybody to accept a healthy lifestyle, you know.
Right. Right.
They
Yeah.
just there's a certain number that will never do it, some that will, some you can talk in, and some will always do it.
Right. No, no, exactly. Yeah. It's funny, in the beginning of the year, the gyms are packed, and then that lasts for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's just the regular people back again.
Yeah.
The New Year's resolutions. Now, business owners such as yourselves have a passionate business and a passion for a certain industry that they do, but sometimes also they think about their retirement, maybe additional income streams that they can create for their families, and they try to do that through passive investments that will take time from their focused careers and focused projects. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's as you get older, I'm getting at that age now where I want to do something different. It's not that I don't enjoy fitness, and I do, but I know the day will come when I'm ready to do something different, right?
Right,
And
right.
and so I'm a big believer. I'm not a don't take real estate, or I mean investment advice for me, but I'm a big liker of real estate. If you buy, let it, if you put enough down, you can make a positive cash flow every month on the rental, and
Mhm, mhm.
it appreciates. So, as I've done the crypto, I've done silver, gold, stocks, and I've never done anything really significantly with that. I'm just not lucky or not smart enough, whatever. But real estate always seems to work out in the long run for me. So I'm sticking with real estate and create some passive income that way.
There you go. There you
But
go. Yes.
I'm not an investment advisor, obviously.
Right, 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 right. Yes. So as we wrap up our interview, what does the 2025 look like for you? What's exciting in the horizon?
Well, I'm working on it, should be launched in the next couple weeks here. It's a new business called gymramp.com, Gym ramp.com. And what we do is we work not only nationally but internationally. I've done wellness programs all over the world. And so I'm going to kind of leverage that and create an online platform where if you own a gym, the biggest problem for gym owners when you're talking sales is they open up a studio, open up a gym, open up a franchise, and they're very motivated maybe in the beginning, to get this thing going. And there's two things. One, they have to realize when you open up a gym or when you open up a fitness business, a studio of any kind, or a wellness facility, one of these new recovery studios, I work with them. What you just did is you bought a sales business. People buy a gym and they think they're in the fitness business. No, you're not. You might get to be in the fitness business if you do your sales first and do it well,
Right.
because otherwise you won't have enough members to do the fitness business with.
Mhm.
So they open up a gym and think that they'll come. They get nice equipment, nice machines, and they sit around and wait for members to walk in, and they don't. So you have to realize when you're in fitness, you just bought a used car lot, you just bought a sales business. And I can't emphasize that enough. And so if you get your sales cycle, your sales process down, how you greet somebody, how you conduct an introduction, how you get information first by asking questions before you give information. If you then give a correct tour with tie downs, trial closes, selling stations, and you understand these mechanics, and you present price the right way, then finally, and if you do all of that well, you don't even have to cover objections. You don't have to be good at it. And the problem is we base our sales process on how good we can cover those objections. Well, if you have to be good at covering objections, you missed all the other four components of the sales process. In other words, if I walked up to you and I shook your hand and I put my hand out, you would naturally reach your hand out. Well, two things
Right.
happened. I controlled what you did in that moment and we shook hands. You weren't upset about it. If I
Right.
said to you then, hey, look over there, and you looked, I then controlled what you did and you didn't even notice. So the sales process is really about psychologically controlling somebody's actions, words, what they do, their experience in a way that I'm now controlling you by the end of the tour. I don't need high pressure. I don't need great closing lines. It's a system that I put together online that teaches these clubs how to sell memberships without being great closers. Because ultimately, when you open up a gym, you're not going to hire great closers. They are people that love fitness, they love wellness, they love recovery. They want to be in the business for that reason. And now you're asking them to sell these memberships. If you know enough to tell them that, right? And,
Right.
and they don't like that. So you can't be successful driving sales. You have to be successful driving a process that lends itself psychologically to a sales at the end. And so
Right.
that's how we grew. I put the sales program together for Exponential Fitness. We went from one brand to 10 brands and went public in 7 years. Huge success based on
Wow.
this model that I rolled out with them. And so
Right.
it's I worked with LA Fitness from the beginning, doing sales with their personal training, 24 Hour
Mhm.
Fitness. Before that was Ray Wilson with Family Fitness.
Mhm.
And what all of these companies had in common was they understood what business they were in, and it was sales. Service came second. What you get now is people that lose that. They love the concept. And so they
Right.
open up and want to do this concept, but they don't really realize they're in sales. So
Right.
um, if you're asking, this question here, my future, whatever, I put this website together to teach um, owners and studios how to do this. And what happens again when an owner does it, they say, "Oh, I can do this themselves." Well, they can, but the problem is you can do it for a while, and then after a month or 3 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years, owners and managers are like, "Oh, I can't keep going through this sales process." I'm really tired of teaching sales over and over to my staff. That's where we come. When we are consistent, we certify your staff on basic sales concepts, basic sales principles. You take them from that point, show them your process, and now you've got a sales team that understands everything, all the five components of the sales process that we just discussed. They're professional, they like it, they're successful.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's really my thing now, is really just take all this knowledge that I use putting together the sales programs for these major corporations over the years, really working behind the scenes and making these big corporations successful with these concepts. And now just bringing it out for the average club owner to use, and in a very expensive way to hire,
Mhm.
to train their staff and keep them proficient at growing their revenue. Once they
Right.
grow
Right.
the revenue, then God bless them, they can do the best service that they want to do. But first, they got to learn to sell.
Right. 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 Well, Don, thanks so much for sharing that. You shared a lot of information. Now, if somebody is listening to us, how would they get a hold of you?
Just go to jimramp.com and you can hit a link there to set up a meeting and we can chat. And whether you just want some ideas, I'm very comfortable in my life. I'm not looking to hard sell anybody. I'll present ideas, and if somebody's interested, great. If it sounds like we're a good fit, awesome. If not, everybody, excuse me, just getting over cold. Everybody get something off of the call, whether we work together or not. Everybody learns, take something away, and that's my thing is make every interaction worthwhile for people. So if you go to jimramp.com, we can have a chat.
Great, Don. And once again, thank you for coming on today. And to our audience, please go to ocpowerplayers.com, follow us on your favorite channel. Don't forget to like us.
Great, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.